On today's episode of the Sales Factor podcast, we have Andy Braisdell, who is the head of sales at a company called Incase. Now, he is responsible for leading the team and is passionate about delivering exceptional client experience and is really proud to be part of a team that's making a real difference in the legal industry. So, super excited to have him on the show. Let's get into it.
Oh,
Hello, Andy. What is
oh,
the What's the biggest problem, biggest challenge in sales that you're finding right now?
well, yeah. I mean, I think a few years ago that'd have been a more difficult question to answer because it'd be different for everyone. But I think we're all united in the fact that we are in a cost of living crisis, and everybody is taking the time, adding more people into the process, and not making decisions as fast as they used to. So obviously that adds extra layers to us being able to get from start to finish as fast as we used to. Things are taking longer for decision making processes, and more people obviously are involved in the process as well.
Hmm, interesting. And just as you said that, I'm actually in a sales process myself. We're buying uh, more of a marketing play. It's these guys want to look at doing a lot of emails for me and that sort of stuff.
Mm,
And yeah, we went through the process. I'm the only decision maker in the business, but yeah, just on that, like I'm not too sure if I want to go for it, and if I
mm,
do want to go for it, it's about time and it's about money, resource. Do I really want to spend the money? Is the ROI going to be as high
mm.
as what I need? But give us a bit more context into that challenge then for you about because you mentioned a few things about having multiple stakeholders or multiple
Yeah.
decision people in the process, and I guess why do you think it's taken a lot longer?
Yeah, I think it kind of makes sense, I suppose, doesn't it? I mean, if you're wanting to
Mm,
sort of tighten on budgets, if business is down, um, you're not necessarily sort of throwing money around the place like it's going out of fashion. And not to say that businesses were doing that previously, but I think there was a lot less friction involved when it comes to making a decision that empower more people to make the decisions for, say, an individual department. Whereas now,
mm,
if it's say a marketing department who want to spend some budget, it's not going to be the head of marketing or the CMO or the marketing director who makes the decision. It's probably going to be the full C-suite, and they're probably going to bring in the CFO as well. So a lot
yeah.
of what's happening is the CFO's getting hold of it and probably going, actually, do we really need to spend this right now? Which obviously adds for a salesperson adds a difficult hurdle to get over, because are those people involved in the process early enough to not just look at it, look at the number, and throw it away, basically?
Yeah, I agree. Do you think there's a reason why there's multiple decision makers in the business that need to be a part of it? Do you think it's come down to key areas as to why there needs to be multiple people signing it off or saying yes?
Yeah, I think it's obviously making sure that the decision is right, making sure that obviously the investment is going. Like what you said earlier, ROI is a big thing, and I think obviously if it's something that they can pretty much guarantee is going to deliver some sort of value to the business in a sort of fairly short space of time, they're probably going to consider that more than something that maybe is a luxury purchase or something that's going to take a lot longer to deliver.
Mm.
I think it's looking at the here and now, and really sort of tightening the purse strings, and that's the biggest issue really. And I think most people will say that their product is amazing and delivers ROI, but
Yeah.
if you're up against 10 other solutions and one delivers ROI a bit faster, you might have that struggle as well. So yeah, it's just layers upon layers of friction that we probably didn't have previously.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes it can be, from a positive note, a good thing, having
Mm,
multiple decision makers on it, because I guess from a business perspective, they want to make sure that the product or service or tech that they're buying is going to give them that return of investment. Or, I guess if it's just one person signing it off, that lies on their shoulders, whether or not it's going to work, right? So
mm,
I guess what we're trying to look at is then how do we get more decision makers into the calls as early as possible? How do we get more people on that initial discovery call or introduction, or really identifying who are the decision makers? Do you think that salespeople just kind of get excited and then just like, oh, let's get a meeting, and because they're very much KPI driven, right? And
yeah.
let's get the meetings booked in. So what's your thought process around, I guess, how salespeople should approach getting more people into the fold?
Yeah, I think to be really honest and probably a little bit harsh about it, I think you get your top performers, you get your kind of middle of the road, and you get your people who don't necessarily perform as well. To put it nicely, and the ones kind of anything below top performers are probably the ones that are struggling the most. Whereas they were probably hitting or near enough hitting quota, they're now sort of maybe at 50% of where they were previously.
Mm,
So I think the most important thing with that in mind is we should be sharpening our toolkit. We should be looking at what are the best ways to go about prospecting, to go about discovery, and then obviously when you've got the meetings from an AE, BDM, whatever you call yourself, perspective, it's what are you doing in those meetings to make sure you're winning hearts and minds.
mm,
There's a lot about process we could go into on that, but ultimately it's a case of during that sort of initial discovery period, are we finding out the things that matter? Who is involved in this decision making process, and what is that process right now? Because
mm,
it probably will have changed, and I think assuming that the process is going to be the same as when you last spoke to them, or assuming that the process is the same across the board, is probably naive, because there's going to be extra layers now. And I think most people who previously had that kind of decision making power probably have been asked to go through other members of the team now, or the senior leadership team in particular. So
mm,
it's really I mean, the obvious thing is qualify, qualify, qualify. At the end of the day, just keep on qualifying and make sure you've covered all bases, because then you have that predictability on your pipeline. You know what's you don't know, you never know, but you've got a more of an idea of what's likely to move and what's not. If they have got budget in place, if you hear anyone say yes, we have got budget and we can spend money, then fantastic. But even in those
mm,
situations, I bet you any money they still have to go and get a further sign off from a senior member of the management team. So you've got to factor all that into when you're at the early stage from an SDR level, when you're initially booking the meeting and you're qualifying that and doing the discovery on it. You've got to do it there. And then if you can bring in more people either at that initial stage, or set up the next action as a meeting that involves more stakeholders, that's going to
mm,
win hearts and minds within the wider business more than just going through one individual. And this is pretty standard stuff, to be fair. It's not a case of we're going to set the world alight by doing this, but this is something where if you do it and you get that right every single time, or as much as you can, you're going to have more success in the long term.
I agree. Yeah, 100%. And you'll be a much better predictability and forecasting your own deals, right?
Mm,
Because I've been in situations where I've had, a director on the call, everything sounds great, they're championing it, but then, they go to, and it's almost like if because you're the expert in your field, in your product, in your tech. And yes, you're pitching or you're speaking or you're selling the service to one person. And if that person has to go away and then try and resell what you've tried to say to them to other people, it's not going to come off as clean and crisp and give
mm,
them as much value as possible, which obviously notoriously will happen that the meeting doesn't go ahead.
mm.
And just thinking about it, it can be really as simple as listen, I want to make sure it's best use of your time, the business time. Like we can have an initial call now, but we need the right people in the room so that I can actually demonstrate. So everybody's on the same page. Everybody understands what we can actually do and what that means for people individually on
Yeah.
an emotional, personal level, but then as a business, how they're going to actually implement it. Have
Mm.
you found in your team or in your experience like ways to get all like ways to get all the decision makers on that first call? Is it just as simple as asking, or is there any way
Yeah, I
that?
mean, it's not. You can always try, but it's unlikely you're going to get all of them every
Right.
single time. I think one of the ways to do it is, if there are a lot of kind of enterprise tricks, and if you go into the toolbox of the enterprise salesperson, there's a lot of things you can take out of there and still apply even at a lower level. So it's across the board. So things like account mapping, obviously, you can do that through things like sales nav. And then multi-threading. So obviously trying to involve these individuals at an early stage, by sort of finding out who they are. And obviously during those kind of initial calls with them as well, is asking who those people are, and bringing them in. And
Mm,
again, during the discovery, it's asking those key questions, things like, if you're like me and you sell technology, it's a case of, I would ask questions around, have you brought in any new technology to the business before? Is that something you've got experience with? Forgetting about what we're talking about now, they could have brought in other systems previously, and when they brought those systems in, they could still be in place now and working really well. But what happened when they brought that system in? Is it something that was a really easy, streamlined process? And if so, what worked well there? Why did it go so well? But actually, if it's working well now but didn't go well at first, what went wrong? What do you think you did? What do you think that happened that sort of caused it to be a problem? And if you find out that there was a problem there, and you dig into that a little bit further, they might come to you and say, "Do you know what? Actually, we took on this technology, we were keen on it, but actually there was other people in the business that weren't bought in, and that's why it took so long to adopt, because they weren't interested, and we had to win hearts and minds to get them to actually use it." And you can take the learning from that and say, look, let's get those people involved at this stage so they're bought in early. They can speak to somebody like me who obviously knows the product, and they can ask the questions, and they can throw a million objections at me, and hopefully I'll be able to answer them all. But if I can't, then you're going to find out if the product actually does work for you or not. So
Yeah.
again, you're almost saying, bring on the pain, bring on the pressure. I'll take it all, and that should buy you more credibility as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've definitely been in situations where I know there's multiple stakeholders or decision makers in the business, but the dynamics being I've got this champion or I've got this person that is a decision maker, but not kind of the final decision maker.
Mm,
And they want the meeting, and you can go down the route of trying to get everybody in, but if it's an introductory call and they might see it as well, if everyone's quite busy in the business and to try and get everybody in, they don't want to waste time, and they want to sort of see if it's the right fit. So if that is the instance, which I imagine some people probably sitting there thinking, yeah, I could try that, but this is likely to be the reality of it.
mm.
Like, would you say they should go ahead with that initial call with a view of trying to book in another meeting for a more deeper dive once with multiple stakeholders, or would you try
Yeah.
and get people in on that first call?
Yeah, I think I think if you win an opportunity to get in front of somebody, you should take it.
Mm,
You need to qualify it well, obviously, but I think you should take that opportunity to have that conversation and work your magic on that call, basically. And again, it's all about winning hearts and minds, right? And if you can win that individual and they become your champion, then it's all about teamwork at the end of the day, and they become part of your team. Actually, I
mm,
really want this, is what you want to hear him say at the end of the call. This is something I think we really need in the business. And if that's the case, okay, well, look, obviously you want this. Let's work together to try and win hearts and minds within the rest of the business. And
yeah,
and that whole sort of champion mentality, it's not, again, it's not, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. This is something we know about in sales, but it's really sort of buying into that and making sure that you do get them to buy into that as well. Have a mutual action plan with them to say, right, this is what you're going to do internally because you've got the control there and I haven't, right? You're the person
mm,
internally that can go and take this and champion it, but you've also got your job to do day to day. So can you fit this in? When can you do it? Um, let's put another meeting in the diary so we can recap on what's happened since we last spoke. Things like that, where you can sort of control the narrative with that champion. You might get to a point where they're like, you know what, I can't win hearts and minds here. I can't do anything with it, but at least you've tried. But if
yeah,
that person that is like, look, we absolutely need to do this, and we're in constant dialogue with them, and they do sort of go into the business and start to sort of win hearts and minds with it, then they'll bring those people into that next call, and then you can book that next action of sort of having a demo meeting with the wider team or whatever it may be, and you're probably going to
mm,
get more traction that way. But the next action after that initial meeting might not be, let's put something in the diary to bring all those people to it. Let's put something for me and you to have a catch up. And then at that point,
mm.
if we think we can get more people into another meeting, we'll then book that action. But you can't win them all at the end of the day. And I think the other thing, obviously, knowing when to stop, knowing when to quit.
Mm.
Your time could be best spent going and finding another opportunity rather than sort of flogging a dead
Trying to
horse, let's
chase it.
say.
Yeah,
But I think the most important thing from a sales perspective, like I say, just going back to it, is sharpening your toolkit and making sure you're doing everything you can to get to the point where you've got more people involved and you're winning that business.
yeah, yeah, and even as simple as just asking them, okay, well, you obviously like the product and like what we do. Like, what is your how do we get the other people in the room? what needs to happen from your side? How do I help you get the right people into the room as a salesperson selling your own technology to them? And they might say, right, cool, it's probably easier if they speak to them or email. And just as you were speaking, I had another guest on the podcast a little while ago, and there's a few different products out there that centralize a lot of value props, if you will. And what it allows you to do is a company called Flola. And what it allows you to do is have all your value props or videos or book-in meetings or just like almost like a sales deck that's quite interactive. And what you can do with that is, say you have that initial meeting with them, you can send them this where they can actually engage with it. And
Mm,
what they can do is then send that around the decision makers so they can quite quickly, in minutes, go through, see what it's all about, and might be videos, there might be stuff that you can put in there, but then they can comment on it and engage with it live.
mm,
And they can be direct to them and they can ask questions from a different perspective, which helps you then book in that meeting to then, talk about the questions or stuff that they are coming through. So, yeah, that could be something that if people aren't thinking
well,
about some of
that's
these
another.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another really good point as well. Aside from sharpening your toolkit, I think looking at what the sales tech stack is you've currently got, and if there's anything better out there, there's a lot of technology now. And I've been in sales since I was 17, and when I first started doing kind of business to business, going out on the road, things like that, it was the old school ways of I would be up and down the motorway every day. I'd be using, I mean, Google was a thing. I'm not that old. Use
What?
Google. But I did also use Yellow Pages as well to
Yeah.
find specific businesses that I was going to target, and obviously going and knocking on doors, going to receptions, handing business cards, and all that sort of old school stuff. But now
Yeah.
people will ask you what's your sales tech stack, and you're like, what? Well, that was never even a thing. It used to just be, oh, I had a mobile phone and a car, so
Yeah.
that would do.
That was it.
Whereas now there's so much clever technology. What you just mentioned there, I've not. I think I've seen something similar. I don't think I've looked at it in any detail, but things that sort of record and sort of annotate meetings and multi-threading through kind of things like Apollo and companies like that, Zoom Info. Let's not go to just one. They're not sponsoring us here at the end of the day. So there's
Come
all
on,
sorts
plug it
of
in. Plug it
yeah,
in.
there's all sorts of different technology out there, and that is a bit of a minefield in itself. But I feel like we should be embracing it, because if we're not, we're probably going to lose. Because if we're still doing things that kind of manual way, although the default should always be pick up the phone, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
but and that will, if you can sit there all day long and hammer the phone and get something out of it. I think you can always rely on that, but ultimately there are other ways of doing it to supplement that. And I think if you're not doing that, you're probably going to lose out on, it's a numbers game at the end of the day. So the more we can do to try and win opportunities, never mind win with the business, actually get the opportunities, then we should be doing it.
Yeah. You sparked a few stories. So I put a post out, I think Monday, about how many times per week do you actually get pitched? It was more from like salespeople, right? And majority was like 10 to 20. I purposely didn't put in 0 to 10 because I wanted to kind of see where people were at and cause different debates on opinion. Why have you not put 0 to 10? But there was a guy commented on it saying I've been pitched 3 times in the last 6 months or twice in the last 6 months. And I was just like, that's crazy. Most SDRs are now defaulting to like emails and LinkedIn. That's fine. Cool, it does work. But I still think you need to pick up the phone to get through to people. So I pushed him and said, cool, put your number in the comments. I'll ring you and I'll pitch you. I'll make a number free. So he did, and I ended up pitching him this morning. So
Nice.
that was quite good. But you mentioned there about Yellow Pages. Way back. So that's how I got my ever first job. So I
Mm,
was like, I think I was 13, going on 13, 14, and I needed money, right? I'm not going to go into the backstory, but I needed money. Um, and I remember it was definitely Yellow Pages. So you had the BT, remember the BT phone book? And then you had
yeah.
Yellow Pages as well. So I opened the Yellow Pages and I put my finger down and I came up the top landscaping. And I was like, what the heck's landscaping? Like, cool. So went down, saw my closest town, saw there was a company. So I ended up my first ever cold call. I rang this guy up. I was like, hey, I'm looking for my first job. Like, have you anything going? He goes, yeah, actually, I need a pair of hands on a Saturday. to come along and help me, mow grass, do the lawns, do the outskirts, do all the edging, and he comes on in the big ride on and does the core of
The
the
fun
grass.
bit.
Fun bit. And I was sitting there. He was smoking like 20 cigarettes a day. It was insane. Anyway, so I just remember, just using the yellow pages to go out there, when there was no technology, when there was no anything else. That was the way of doing it. And it was the old landlines as well, so putting in the area code and
Yeah.
remembering numbers. So interesting. Love that. So yeah, no, I agree. I think there's definitely sharpening your tools for sure. Great. And looking at other tech that can centralize a lot of stuff that um reduces people's time and keeps it all kind of centralized so the conversations happen in one area.
Mm,
Um, there's Flowla, that's good. I think there's another company called Trumpet. I haven't used Trumpet, but I
mm.
think they do something similar, which is really good. So if anyone's listening that wants to check them out, go do it. But you mentioned at the start of the conversation, sales has slowed down this year as opposed to last year. Like, why do you think that, or why do you feel that sales has slowed down in the last year?
Like I say, I think everyone's just conscious of spending money. I mean, I don't know about you, but even on an individual basis, I've budgeted, and I should have done it a long time ago, but probably for the first time in a long time recently. Um,
Mm,
I think it's more because if you have an amount of money coming in, you think that's not a bad number. I'm doing okay, but actually, it's all going quite quickly, and you need to go and have a look and go, well, why is that? Why why is all my money going at the end of the month? Um, and why don't I have a kind of buffer in my bank account like I used to have? And then you look at it and you go, actually, I'm spending quite frivolously here. I need to really look at
mm,
this and go, yeah, don't limit yourself. If you can afford not to, then enjoy your life, because that's what we're here for. At the end of the day, we're working to have a good time in life, aren't we? And look after our kids and all that good stuff. But at the same time, you have to be sensible. And when times get tough and bills get higher, and business slows, then you've obviously got to look at the numbers and see what's going out. And if
yeah,
that means that you have to stop spending, then that means you have to stop spending. And I think that's on an individual level that's happening. But with businesses, it's exactly the same. It's a domino effect at the end of the day.
yeah,
If consumers are spending less, then businesses aren't making as much on that side of things, and then that has a knock-on effect into the corporate world and so on and so forth. So people are just more cost conscious than they've ever been. But
yeah.
again, if you've got a product that is amazing and will sort of revolutionize a business or revolutionize a department or whatever the case may be, then people will sit up and listen. You've just got to do a
Mm,
good job of showing them how it will do that and making it sort of worth their time, worth their money, and in the long term, worth having
mm.
a relationship with you.
Yeah, which is why it's even more important now to get all the
Mm,
decision makers in the room, right? And whatever way you slice it and dice it, if you're not doing it now, like try it on the phone, like,
mm,
because look at potentially the deals lost in the last 6 months. Okay, did you have all the right people in it? Could you have
yep.
gotten something earlier on to try and get more of those people in? Could have face to face meeting to go and meet the business and get
Oh
everybody
yeah,
in a room
good
and like,
point.
do you know what
It's
I
a
mean?
good
There's
point. People don't do that as much anymore. That was how I was brought up, but and admittedly, I've not done anywhere near as much as I'd like to have done, because I always say that's like my natural environment. I prefer being
yeah.
face to face, eyeball to eyeball, human to human, let's say. And we are kind of we're encouraging it from our side now. I think it's something that I think we should do more of. Obviously, you've got to be smart about it. I think gone are the
Sure.
days where you would literally be on the motorway every day. That's just silly. It's not
Yeah.
ethically. Yeah, you've got to do things the right way at the end of the day. But I feel like obviously, you know, when you want to sort of firm up relationships with existing customers and obviously make sure you're kind of winning hearts and minds with prospects as well, you absolutely should throw that into the mix, especially at latter stages. I mean, more importantly, at latter stages, I would say if people are just a little bit unsure, I think having a bit of FaceTime with them and kind of showing them the cut of your cloth and them sort of buying into you as an individual, and then
Mm,
as a knock-on effect, the business. I think obviously you can judge a business through the people that they hire. Um, Sales doesn't have to be me trying to sell at you. It's got to be that sort of consultative approach now across the board, really. And I think if you're dealing with somebody who has consulted with you, they've listened to what your issues are, and they've been able to solve a lot of those issues for you, then you're in the right sort of you're in the right sort of company, basically. And I think it's something that you can probably more confidently say, yeah, I want to work with this person and this company as a result.
Yeah. Face to face, like I love it. I love networking. I love face to face. That's where I come alive really,
Mm.
or even on Zoom calls. And I'm quite an energetic person anyway.
Mm.
People are just like, how many coffees have you had a day? And I'm like,
I'm the same, mate, and I don't drink caffeine anymore. So there you go.
yeah. Hey, what do you like with caffeine? That's what I want to know.
Do you know what the reason? One of the reasons I did a DNA test, and my stomach doesn't like caffeine apparently, which wasn't a
Oh,
major
right,
issue.
okay.
But I thought I'll just cut it out and the reason why it was easy for me to cut it out is because it didn't really do that much to me. I never got that buzz. Whereas my missus, she literally bounces up and down the
Yeah.
house, and she cleans the house in like twice the time, and all that. Really good return
Love
on
it.
investment, by the way.
Yeah.
Just give her
Yeah.
caffeine, and you're getting
Yeah.
double your money.
Love that.
I'm
Love
kidding.
that.
It's an equal environment. I clean too, just so you're all aware.
Yeah. Good. Face to face, I think, yeah, I don't want to beat the drum about it, but it helps like build the relationship so much more. You get so much more buy-in. Even presentations. I love like stand up in front of people and like rather than just delivering something. I think because I've been in training sessions and stuff before where people have taken it and just talk at you and it's not
Mm,
fun. Like people learn different ways from visual to actually getting involved with something. Like for me, what I deliver is similar, I guess, to this podcast. It's like asking questions, and like active listening, and rather than just presenting slides and stuff. Like, okay, before we even start, like, what do you want to get out of it? Why are you here? Like, and
mm,
just really getting the room like engaged in terms of questions, so that throughout I can stop the presentation, ask questions, check that people are understand what I'm saying, that stuff, and I think a lot of people like that because again, it's human nature. We need that connection. We
mm.
can get it face to face, granted, yes, but face to face, I think it just takes it up that level. And again, if
Yeah,
you've got multiple decision makers, stakeholders in the business that make a decision on a product, like if you've got an opportunity to go face to face, if they're in your city and it's 20 minutes away, half an hour away, like
yeah, no brainer,
it's
definitely.
a no brainer.
Mm,
Also, you mentioned earlier about like the risk involved, like, and I really think that's a key point. Why I guess the dynamics of people as an individual decision maker won't make the decision if they're
mm.
a SME or scale up startup, whatever. Um, because I'm sure in the past, even last year, where like it was heyday for a lot of people, where they were just buying so much different tech and tech that's probably worked out, granted, yes, but also tech that they probably bought and spent money on that hasn't worked out, which then
Yeah.
has impacted bottom line of business, which
Mm.
I guess the screws are starting to tighten. But I guess, do you feel that, or do you think that people don't want that decision to rest on their shoulders and kind of have that
Yeah,
team mentality? We've all agreed on this.
yeah, 100%. I think you've got to look at it like this. You're not the only person who wants to sell them something, right? Um,
Mm.
they've probably, let's just guess, they've probably been given a budget to spend this year. So that's not that much has not changed. Every department head will have a budget. This is what you can spend. Anything else, you'll have to come to us. Sometimes you might see that an IT team has got a separate pot for something like a technological purchase, but ultimately they've got a few different plates spinning. They've probably got a few things they want to spend that budget on. You come along and present this amazing solution to them, but actually they've never factored that in the first place. They didn't expect this to happen, but now they love it and they want it. So
Yeah.
they've got to look at it like, well, have I got budget for it? Possibly, but I also wanted to spend this, and this. So actually, that might take me over my budget. And also, there's
Mm.
all that other extra bit of decision making with the senior team that I've got to go through, and all that good stuff. So you're adding different elements there that probably weren't there previously. They might have been able to go and get other pots or something like that to get it through and authorize it themselves. Whereas now they're going, well, this is going to take me over what I've planned to spend this year. Um,
Mm.
I need to then go and speak to other people, and there's kind of risk associated with that. Is because I love it doesn't necessarily mean they'll love it, and then if it fails, then who's responsible for it?
Yeah.
and that's a risk that people are just more risk averse now, I think, than they have been for a long time. So again, it's another thing where we've got to combat that early doors, and we've got to kind of almost sort of probably nip it in the bud, and kind of have that conversation with them early doors. Say it to them. So I understand that this is the case, and
Mm.
they may turn around and say to you, no, actually, it's fine. We've got loads of money. And then you're like, oh, great, brilliant. We'll move on
Laughing.
to the next day. But I think that's another thing as well. It's again, I always say, just be a human being. Have a
Mm.
conversation with a human being. Don't think of them as you're looking up at them, and you're please buy this off me. It's very much like, let's have a chat about what your situation is right now, and let's
Yeah.
go through every different area we can think of to make sure that this is the right thing for you. And if we find something that's going to be a sticking point, then let's address it.
Yeah, bingo. Like the amount of calls I have is like, listen, I do recruitment. I'd love to talk to you about recruitment, but that's not the only reason I want to speak to you, right?
Mm,
For me, it's about getting to know you. Like even our relationship, we've
yeah,
spoken about a
I
million
can
different
vouch for that.
things, right? Other than recruitment, right? And I think that's really where good relationships start and obviously grow and progress, and it gets to a point where we do work together, which is great. Listen, I think we've went through a load there for people to take away in terms of action of like getting that decision makers. Look at your own process. Look at are you asking those questions that Andy's obviously alluded to? Can you get more people into the process earlier that are actually crucial for that deal, because it's going to increase the likelihood of that deal closing if you
Mm,
get more people in, and obviously the reasons why sales is a bit down from last year, and I guess what people should be thinking about because it's more crucial to get more people in. So yeah, absolutely love that, mate. Loads of advice people could take away about
mm,
base and using
good.
centralized systems. So just I guess to wrap it all up, then you've been in sales obviously since 17. So what would you say is the biggest highlight of your sales career so far?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I think if you'd have asked me that maybe 10, 15 years ago, I would have probably told you about my best deal that I ever did. That may be
Yeah.
loads and loads of money. Um, and let's not sugarcoat it. Of course, I'm here to make money. That's why I went into sales and stayed in sales. And I think if you stay in sales for a long time and you're not in it for the money, you're lying or you're stupid.
Yeah.
um, to be blunt. But I think now, genuinely, the most rewarding thing for me, and sort of the biggest highlights and ongoing highlights, I suppose, for me, is when I kind of bring a new person into sales, train them, and then they go off and do well.
Mm,
I've got a few recent and a lot of legacy ones that I could mention, but there's people that I've kind of come and worked for me that I've helped and trained, and they've helped me equally as well, booking meetings for me, whatever the case may be, who've all gone on to have really successful sales careers. That some of them are in leadership positions themselves now, and
nice.
that is not one highlight; it's lots of highlights. And I think as much as I will always be on the front line selling, I don't think that'll change because I enjoy it too much, as well as sort of managing teams. I think that part of it is, I think it's becoming a dad. I'm probably softened a little bit in my older years. I'm not that old yet, but keep on saying that. But I've got two kids of my own and three stepkids, and they all live under one roof with me. So it's an absolute madhouse here, and obviously I constantly think about helping them with their next steps, and that kind of just leaked into my work basically, and that's going to be the biggest thing for me now.
That's awesome, mate. Yeah, I
Mm,
think it's not necessarily go down the self satisfaction route, but when you've done a good job, like
yeah,
you've done right by people, you trained in the right way, and then they've went and smashed it. Like there's no better feeling.
yeah,
I've definitely been in situations before where people are going and now they're breaking all my records
mm,
that I
exactly
set, and
that.
it's just like, go on, go on. That's awesome.
Mm.
Good. Well, tradition, just to finally wrap up the show, then. For people that are listening that want to reach out to you, Andy, you know, how should people contact you? And feel free to plug in your business, what you guys do, who you're trying to go after in terms of your ICP, and if you guys are hiring right now.
Yeah, we're not hiring at the moment, so we're probably looking at 2024 for that. But Yeah, so you can get me on LinkedIn. You see the spelling of my surname here. Nobody else has got my surname. That is a unique one, which is nice. I'm easy to find in that respect, as long as you get the spelling right. Um, and my email is andy at incase.legal, which is pretty easy as well. So in case, just to sort of give it, I suppose, a bit of an elevator pitch. So we help law firms basically drive a lot of operational efficiencies. So as an example, reducing phone calls up to 80%, reducing timelines of cases up to 42%, really sort of tangible deliverables that make a big difference. And what that often means is you have an increased capacity for new business. So we're talking about sales and the issues with that. Sometimes it's just that you're too busy. So if we can reduce that for you and give you more time, that means you can potentially make more money as long as the business is there. But if the business isn't there, you've got more time to go and find it. So that's what we do, and we use an app to do that. Everything's an app these days, but you know what? There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
So any law firms out there are looking to sort of remove friction and less paperwork, then give me a shout.
Yeah, awesome. And best way is either email or LinkedIn, which I'll add in
Yeah,
to the comment section anyway, so people can reach out to you. But absolutely awesome, Andy. Cheers for taking the time today. It's been an
no
absolute
problem.
pleasure.
Pleasure.
See you all in the next one.
Cheers, buddy.
Bye. Absolutely love that session there with Andy about um, really getting all the decision makers in the room. Like we break down as the reasons why sales meetings or prospects don't buy. It could come down to not having the right people in the room early on. So we talk about like, okay, that is an issue, but how do we actually overcome it? How do we get the right people in the room? So kind of be just being upfront, honest with people, saying, listen, the only way this is really going to work is if we can get all the key stakeholders, all the decision makers into a room and asking how that is actually done, or can you still have an intro call with someone to explain what you guys do and how it can benefit them, and then centralize, your sales decks or your value props into a piece of technology where they can share it with the rest of the decision makers, so they can engage with it and comment on it, and then you can obviously group that meeting in so everyone's on the same page. Or if you've got an opportunity where people do need your software or do need your tech or your services, why not go see them face to face? You probably get a lot more buy-in. You probably get a lot more of people's time. You build that relationship up quicker, and you can really explain more in detail face to face than I believe that you can in the time that you spend on a video call. So that is it for today's session. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all on the next one.